Hi, I'm Matthew McLean. I'm the creative director of Frieze Studios and the editor of Frieze Week magazine. This is Art Live. It's Frieze Week in London, and over 280 galleries from across the world have come to exhibit at Frieze London and Frieze Masters here in the Regent's Park. I'm here at Frieze London, which is just about to open. There are people at the doors chomping at the bit to get into the art, and the energy is kind of reflected in this installation behind me by the Korean artist Byung-Young Kwon. It's presented in partnership with Frieze and the Korean Arts Management Service, and these dancing robots are also excited to get into the fair. So come with me. Bharti, could you tell me who have you selected to show this year in Artist to Artist?
So I've selected this artist from South India. His name is Vankana, and you can see his works here. I've been looking at his etchings or his drawings, and I just thought, wow, his work is really powerful. I was unsure whether a man or a woman had made the work, and I really liked his engagement with gender, especially in a country as complex as India. And to me, this looked like these drawings were 5,000 years old, but they also look like really, really contemporary. I found that his work was really pushing against gender misconception. He's really making the female the protagonist in the work. Absolutely, and that darkness, the danger of it, the idea of the forbidden, the primal. There's a lot of energy in this space, and it's kind of tactile. And it's the same as like when you walk into a temple. You feel that the stone is somehow worn by, thousands of people of walking over hundreds and hundreds of years, and you feel the energy of civilization.
There's a lot of talk at the moment about the relationship between the fairs in London and in Paris, so I love the fact that you can see one of the most exciting young galleries in Paris right here in London this week. It's Petrine Gallery, it's their second time in focus, and it really shows how bold people can be in this section. They're showing a single floor-based work by Alana Ricca. It shows this skeuomorphic view of an apartment. It's almost hardly there, it's entirely flat, merges seamlessly with the surroundings, and yet it's so vivid and striking. Good morning, Selim.
Good morning.
Why have we chosen to meet here? What galleries are we looking at?
So we are in the duo gallery with Carbon 12 from Dubai and Selma Feriani, who's present between Tunisia and London. Carbon 12 has been focusing on showing artists which are not necessarily from the region, so trying to bring international art into Dubai. Selma, on the other side, is a Tunisian gallery. She's a champion in the local art scene. And what I like about this booth is that both galleries are bridging the distance between Tunisia and Dubai. And the themes within this booth is around the home and the intimacy. So if I look at the works of, for example, Monika Grabushnik, you look at it from here, it looks like a painting, but it's actually a ceramic, and it's like a duvet. So it works around this intimacy and this feeling that you have when you are at home in bed.
Can you say something about the efforts you've been making to build bridges between Tunisia and North Africa and the rest of the global art world?
A very important part within the art scene is supporting the non-for-profit organizations within your city. So with Gazworks this year, we launched for the first time the North Africa residency program, which is going to be a 4-year commitment to host an artist every year from Tunisia, Algeria, Libya, Morocco, to give a chance to artists from these countries who are locally based there to come and be in London for a period of 12 months and see what London has to offer. To be here in the UK and to feel the strength of the British and the London art scene is indescribable.
Frieze obviously just announced this partnership with Frieze Abu Dhabi, will be happening November 2026. People who haven't been to the Emirates before, what can they expect from the art scene there?
Obviously, we had other affairs like Abu Dhabi Art Fair, Art Dubai, but the scene has matured somehow with what local artists can show. Between the Louvre, the Guggenheim, and other beautiful museums opening soon in Abu Dhabi, I think it makes a lot of sense to be in that city. And I think it's time that the world kind of starts changing their lens and realizing that it is an important part of the ecosystem and it's there to stay.
This extraordinary 2013 kinetic sculpture by Michael Landy was acquired from Thomas Dane Gallery today through the Contemporary Art Society's collection funds for the Walker Art Gallery in Liverpool, where there are some of my favourite medieval altarpieces. which makes it a perfect home for this work, for which Landy is drawing on medieval iconography, religious iconography. It's this kind of junkyard, steampunk agglomeration of maybe what T.S. Eliot called a heap of broken images that comes together in this really playful way. Good morning, Noémie. Congratulations on your presentation in the Deutsche Bank Wealth Management Lounge.
Thank you.
Can you tell me the title of this display and why you chose it?
So the title is Inhale, Exhale, and it's actually coming from a piece, a neon that I've made. And what I wanted to create is a sensation that breathing, how do we adjust that to how we see our planet?
And this idea of different ways of relating to the planet is explored in this amazing tower installation that's kind of the centerpiece of the lounge. Can you tell me about this project?
I worked with a science historian on finding the most important theory of how the world was perceived. So it starts with Plato and Aristotle, it goes to Buffon, etc. Each of those savants and scientists explain the world and its relief and its formation through different ways, depending on the religious, the scientific and the social context. And to me it's really interesting to think that you see a mountain, an ocean, they may look the same, but depending on the moments in time, they have been explained, they have been visualized and interpreted so differently.
You've just completed this project, you recently opened a show at Adolescente in London that's on view now. Your Art Angel commission was just announced, congratulations. I know you were to show at Leeds City Art Gallery in the coming weeks. How do you cope with these periods of intense production, exhibition and I imagine stress?
Well, we've been planning those shows for a very long time, so I feel like now it's the easy part. I never had a moment with that many shows at the same time, so I really wanted it to feel like they were different and talking to each other and showing also the diversity also of my practice. I feel now it's a celebration of all that. Really proud.
So now, to refer to the neon, you get to exhale.
Exactly. I kind of had to stop breathing for a while, but now it's...
Let's take a big deep breath out together, okay? Thank you, congratulations.
Thank you.
Frieze Sculpture sits in between Frieze London and Frieze Masters here in the Regent's Park English Gardens. And it's a display of outdoor work that's free for anyone to visit. This is a sculpture by the Brazilian artist Enrique Oliveira, and it makes quite a cozy place to rest on a chilly day. The artist actually works with reclaimed plywood that she finds on building sites, particularly prevalent in Sao Paulo. And in this act of reuse, I guess she kind of points to life cycles, the way that the sculpture digs into the ground or seems to be emerging out of it. It reminds us that everything one day ends up back in the earth.
So maybe kick out.
Oh, just about.
That's quite good.
What bit does this stretch?
I don't know. I'm just seeing other people doing it.
Something.
So 10k I'm doing each day because that's like the distance from my flat to my studio. Thinking about the rituals I have in my life, and I suppose my art practice is one of them, and my running is another one. And so while this thing's going on, I've created a ritual I can do to distract myself from what's going on.
Do you feel that's a parallel with your painting? So obviously you're depicting the body and flesh, which is sort of the apex of technique.
That's a parallel I've sort of noticed as well, that they're both sort of aspirational, and especially like referencing Caravaggio, I feel like he's a very aspirational character in the canon, you know, and the painters and art, you know, you go and see the Caravaggios and you want to like sort of try and emulate that in some way, and you're always going to fail.
So Glen, obviously you're doing this running performance, but tell me the bare bones, what are you showing in Frieze London in Focus section?
So the presentation is called Church of Self. It consists of 3 quite large paintings. I'm doing these kettlebell exercises in these 3 big ones, and all the me characters in the booth are all like looking up to the sky, to the supernatural, to the wellness gods. And then the data screen is going to be like a live data feed of the run that I do every day at the fair. It's the sort of data fallout from these rituals that I have.
Well, I'm heading in there, so I'll let you go and not think about Frieze. See you later.
Well done.
One thing about Frieze Week is you do get your steps in. I should probably take up a bit more running. I'm at the stand of Brunn Fine Art, a gallery based in Milan and Florence, and it's in a new section at Frieze Masters this year called Reflections, which is curated by Abby Bangser, the founder of Object and Thing, and a leading specialist in the art of design. All the 6 gallery presentations in this section this year have responded to 2 historic art collections in domestic settings. And what Brunn have done is really evoke the spirit of Sir John Soane's house, which is festooned with antiquities from all kinds of different eras, different textures, different materials, different cultures, in this really atmospheric way. I think all of the presentations and reflections, by responding to these domestic spaces, give us new ideas about how to live with art, but they also put a special emphasis on the arrangement of objects. And we get this idea that meaning is not just in these things, but in between them and how they speak to each other. Good afternoon, Vito.
Good afternoon.
You obviously grew up surrounded by art. How do you think that experience of being up close to artists in your personal life has sort of affected your eye as a dealer today?
When I was about 11, 12 years old, I started to be around a lot of young artists, and I was already starting to look at paintings and going to museums. And then I was in Cooper Union quite a bit and had the idea of putting on an exhibition called Incubator. And then I had a show for Ron Gorchov. Unusual surroundings, but lucky, I guess.
I'm delighted that you mentioned Gorchov, and there are 2 beautiful examples here. Tell me a little bit about your discovery and what it's been like to sort of communicate this artist's vision.
I'm always looking for things that I haven't seen before. So when I saw them for the first time, I'd never seen a painting like that, and they reminded me of shields.
I love that you mention it in relation to shields, because you're saying you love medieval armor. You could hang it next to some arms from Peter Finer.
Yeah, and Ron collected a lot of African art and masks, and so the first time I saw his paintings, it was surrounded by spears and African masks and all different types of art that Ron collected, and he taught me a lot.
You have curated the art for the hottest restaurant opening in London of the season, if not the year, which is the London branch of Carbone.
Yeah.
Can you talk to me a little bit about how that came about and what people can expect to see in the restaurant?
I mean, I designed the restaurant in New York and put all the art in there 11 years ago, and London was always on our radar. Found this incredible space, incredible location, and the restaurant's beautiful. I think the art looks amazing. You know, you have 3 Clementes, and then you have Angel Otero, who has his own room, and Ai Weiwei, who's, you know, one of our great artists and a hero of mine.
What's your go-to thing on the menu?
The Orchiette Vito.
Be rude if you didn't,
Yeah,
really.
exactly.
One thing I'm noticing at Frieze Masters this year is an emphasis on different kinds of objects. Yes, you can find old master paintings, but you can also find art pieces that sit outside some of those traditional categories of fine art. For example, at Charles Ede, there's a beautiful display of exquisite Roman glassware. And there's quite a marked presence this year specifically of fabrics and textile works. And at this stand, which is from the gallery Moshe Tabibnia from Milan. And behind me is this magnificent tapestry from the 16th century in Flanders, which was then kind of the center for the finest tapestry production in the world. In this era, tapestries were actually even more prestigious and valuable than paintings were. And looking at an example like this, you can sort of see why. Alana, welcome back to Frieze Masters.
Thank you.
How has opening day been so far?
We're extremely pleased. It was important to us to come back with a solo presentation. Here we are with a tremendous grouping of works by Andrew Wyeth. So far, the reception has been immensely positive.
He's an iconic American artist, but I guess we're seeing a slightly different side of his practice in this grouping.
I think it's really important to know that in the context of this incredible realism that Andrew Wyeth is perhaps best known for, his work borders on the abstract so often. You know, we have these incredible tempera paintings, which are really, really precise. But I think the great thing about this presentation is we can get a glimpse into these very 2 different parts of Wyeth's practice. On one hand, it's very formal. The painterly practice is very, very precise. And then on the other hand, you know, these become very loose, expressive, abstract. You really feel the urgency and the immediacy of his work in watercolor too.
So one thing about Frieze Masters is there are always surprises. As I was walking down the aisle, my eye was immediately caught by this object I wasn't expecting to see today. It's a pharmacy jar from Italy from the 1400s. It's at the stand of Racanello and Lepronce. What's really striking about this jar is in amongst the other more formal, really ornamented examples on the stand, some of them very finely painted with very considered mythological themes, This is quite a utilitarian object. It's from pharmacies, so it's probably likely for storing herbs or a tincture of some sort. And it's really, really beautifully patterned. It looks abstract, but it's almost like a flower repeat all around it. And then on the front, it has this unidentified marking. The galleries refer to it as just an unidentified pharmacy marking. So it might indicate what was inside the jar, what it's meant to cure. But actually from a distance, it almost just looks like a face. And it reminds me of the ceramics that Picasso made in the south of France when he's really looking at Mediterranean culture. So it really straddles different periods in a way that's quite striking. So that's it. Or rather, that's not actually it, because even though I've done about 30,000 steps today, I still feel like I've only just scratched the surface of these two fairs. So I'm going to keep on exploring, but I'm going to do that without you. Thank you so much for joining us for Art Live, and I'll see you next time.